Good morning, everybody. This is Miss McCorkle, and welcome to video number 8. So today we're going to go back and review a little bit about ledger lines that we covered in video 7. And then I'll talk just a little bit about the C major scale and introduce the G major scale as well. Okay, so first let's do a little review of the ledger lines that we did last time, and then I'll introduce some more ledger line notes to you today. Okay, last time we did the treble clef, and we said that because there are more notes than we can fit on a staff, we have to add lines above or below the staff. So we're going to add those lines up above. And we did this last week. So we said, every good boy does fine. So our top line is an F. And then we need to review how to draw in the spaces and the lines above the treble clef. So since this is a line, the next one is a space. Then we draw our first line, and the line goes through the circle. Then we draw our line again and put the note on top of the line. And our last one is our line with one more line, and the note has the line going through it. Now, if you'll recall, we said the top line, every good boy does fine, is an F. So if we're on F and we go to the very next space, that's going to be our G. The next line note is A. Next, after A is B. And then we have our very high C. Okay, so just wanted to review those for the treble clef. Make sure you see that it alternates from line to line to line, and that means we leave out the spaces in between. So that's your F, space G, line A, space B, line C. Okay, now let me review the bass clef that we did last time. Okay. Well, let's see. Let me start a little higher since I'm going to be writing these below it. And why don't you just go ahead and write these down in your workbook as well. So we've got our 5 lines. We're closing them in with bar lines. Okay. Then we're going to go to the 4th line, put our dot, half of a heart, a dot above the 4th line, a dot below the 4th line. So now we have our bass clef sign. Okay, now don't forget that when we do our bass clef notes, they're going to go below the staff. So we need to know what is this lowest note in the bass clef. Okay. Great big dogs fight animals. So our lowest note is G. Now, since in the bass clef we're going down, not up, then that means we go backwards in the alphabet. Okay, so let's say we were here on G. When we draw our notes in, we're going down on the staff. So that means we go backwards in the alphabet. So our first note that's going to be a space under the line is an F. Then we have to draw in another line. Line goes through the circle. That makes it a line note, letter E. Now we draw our line again. But we don't make it a line note, we make it a space note by putting the note under the line. So that's our D. Now we draw our first line and we draw our second line, and the note has to have the line going through it. So this is a line, space, line, space, line pattern. Okay? So that's F, E, D, and very low C. So we have that very low C and the very high C that both have the two lines. So that's easy to remember. Okay, so those are below the bass clef and above the the treble clef. So now today what we're going to do, we're going to go to the middle of the grand staff and we're going to do the ledger lines that go above the bass clef and the ones that go below the treble clef. Okay? So let's erase this. You can rewind your video if you need to get that copied down. And I went too fast. Just rewind your video. Okay, so let me show you where these notes are going to go. So if I have a treble clef, staff, and I have a bass clef staff, go ahead and draw this in your workbook. So we've got 5 lines on the top one and 5 lines on the bottom one. And we're going to join them together to make them a grand staff. Here I'll put my treble clef. And here I'll put my bass clef. Okay? So make sure you have that. So the ones that I just reviewed were the ledger line notes above the treble and below the bass. Now we're going to work in the middle. So we're going to have some ledger line notes for the bass clef and some for the treble clef. Okay? All right, so let's do these 3 notes for the treble clef first. Okay? So you know when we have middle C, let me make that again, that didn't do so well. There we go. When we have middle C, we actually, if the right hand has to play it, we can write our note that we normally play with the left hand, which is B, we can write it in the treble clef by having our C line, and one note under C is the B. So this is middle C and this is B. And we also can draw in one more little line and make our line go through the circle, and that will be this A that we normally play with the left hand if the right hand needs to play it. Okay? So those are important notes to know as well. Ledger lines for the right hand below middle C. This is what your B would look like, and this is what your A would look like. Now, let's do some for the bass clef. Let's say we had middle C in the bass clef,